The Republicans have voted to hold Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress for withholding Biden audio. This stems to a conversation Biden had with the prosecutor who decided that Joe Biden's mental state, well, because it's so poor, he cannot be held criminally accountable for the crimes he committed. Not kidding. They said he's a doddering old man. He'll look endearing to the jury and we can't convict him. Joe Biden broke the law clearly, admittedly, with classified documents that he withheld so he could write a book and make money. But he's just too old and out of it. So the Republicans wanted this audio. They want to know what this conversation had. And it appears the issue is Joe Biden will look like a doddering old fool in the audio recording. And that is, well, it's bad for his campaign. But Matt Gaetz last night brought up a really great point, and he said there's nothing in that audio that's going to enlighten us any more than we already are. The man appears to have taken a crap in his pants at the D-Day ceremony in France. You know, so I asked our good friend ChatGPT, I said, did Joe Biden, you know, is it reasonable to assume that he suffered an episode? And it said, no, absolutely not. And then I said, if an 81-year-old man standing up, squatted over, stood up, squatted over, is it reasonable to assume that he's suffering an episode? And it said, yes, of course, absolutely. I was like, okay, but not when it's Joe Biden. Thanks, ChatGPT. We love you, AI. Where we're currently at right now, Merrick Garland has been held in contempt. Nothing is going to happen. There's going to be, they're not going to go after him. He's not going to go to jail. Steve Bannon, however, is facing prison. Peter Navarro is in prison. And many are asking about Alvin Bragg's connection with the DOJ and the prosecution of Trump at the state level. Because as it turns out, as most of you know, a high-ranking DOJ official stepped down from his position at the federal level to go be a local prosecutor. Interesting. Well, Bragg's office is denying having any conversation. It's a conspiracy theory. Oh, please, let's break this down and we'll explain exactly the dirty game that's being played. Now, I will stress, my friends, you know, look, what we have here, I guess, is another strongly worded letter. I can't say I'm excited for it. Being held in contempt, interesting. But we know there's a double standard. And all we seem to ever get is strongly worded letters from the Republican Party. Now, Matt Gaetz points out that subpoena power actually has a tremendous impact. When they subpoena these individuals and pull up their conversations and communications, it actually changes things. Gaetz pointed out that after his grilling of Lloyd Austin, there ain't going to be any Pride Month events or drag queen story hours on military bases. This public pressure does work. I say sure if we're talking about drag queen story hour, but right now we are talking about the highest law office in the land being an abject criminal organization and facing no repercussions or accountability. Here's a story from the AP News. The House voted Wednesday to hold Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. Now, let's just, look, nothing's going to happen. For refusing to turn over audio of President Joe Biden's interview in his classified documents case, Republicans' latest and strongest rebuke of the DOJ as partisan conflict over the rule of law animates the 2024 presidential campaign. The 216 to 207 vote fell along party lines, Republicans coalescing behind the contempt effort, despite reservations among some of the party's more centrist members. Only one Republican, Rep. David Joyce of Ohio, voted against it. Garland said in a statement late Wednesday, "It is deeply disappointing that this House of Representatives has turned a serious congressional authority into a partisan weapon." Really? Steve Bannon would like to have a word with you. Today's vote disregards the constitutional separation of powers, the Justice Department's need to protect its investigations, and the substantial amount of information we have provided to the committees. Okay, so Joe Biden cites executive privilege. As the president, he doesn't need to turn over his communications to Congress. When Donald Trump cited executive privilege pertaining to records that Steve Bannon had, the January 6th committee said, "We don't care, and you're going to jail anyway." And now Steve Bannon has to report to jail in a couple of weeks. Look, man, everybody knows double standard, double standard. The question is, where is any red state law enforcement to go after any of these people? And when I bring this up to Matt, he says, is that really what we want? extrajudicial. I never said extrajudicial. I said judicial accountability. And you know, we're big fans of Matt because he's probably he's the best member of Congress that we got. Florida, you're very lucky. But the perspective is wrong. I don't personally want any retribution, judicial, extrajudicial, anything. I just want the law to be enforced. I don't understand how we can live in this world where you have Donald Trump being charged every which way, 6 ways from Sunday, and not a single Democrat. Oh, Hunter Biden. No, we didn't vote for Hunter Biden, the Democrats. So, yeah, I don't care about Hunter Biden. In fact, I don't think he should be charged for the gun stuff. Ridiculous. How about the influence peddling, the tax evasion? How about collusion between state and federal offices to go after the front runner for this 2024 election? Now, Matt agreed. He said that's the most egregious thing we have. Yes, so let's see some law enforcement action. Any? No, we're not getting any of that. He added, I will always stand up for this department, its employees, its vital mission. Oh, I just want to say, thank God this man did not make it to the Supreme Court. Republicans, they don't realize how good of the work they were doing by blocking him, despite it was a partisan effort, but still. Garland is now the third attorney general to be held in contempt of Congress. Yet it's unlikely that DOJ, which Garland oversees, will prosecute him. The White House's decision to exert executive privilege over the audio recording, shielding it from Congress, would make it exceedingly difficult to make a criminal case against Garland. Yeah, Steve Bannon would like to have a word with you about that. Nonetheless, Speaker Mike Johnson defended the decision to push ahead with what is now a mostly symbolic effort. Look, we did our job on the contempt, and I think it sends an important message, the Louisiana Republican said following the vote. We'll see what happens next, but I mean, the House has to do its work, and I'm pleased with the outcome today. We knew that this was a bunch of nonsense. Mike Johnson, the One Ring, we talked about him too. Here's a guy who seemingly was a good dude up until he became speaker. They brought him in the back room, flogged him up a little bit, and then he came out saying, I love the deep state. Congratulations. You're doing nothing. You're wasting our time, and we all know it. I don't know. The only strategy I can see in not going after these obvious criminals is that the Republicans want to avoid stepping in it like Democrats are. Democrats are so desperate, they're launching these criminal actions against Trump and Bannon, Navarro, et cetera, and it makes them look panicked and desperate. It also turns Trump and Bannon into martyrs, which rallies support and donations. We're in the era of the, oh, heavens me, I'm a victim. But if it works, right? That's the only thing I can see. Now, here's this is a good one. Merrick Garland posted an op-ed in the Washington Post, omitting the truth. Well, because he's evil. These people are evil, okay? Like, say whatever you want about Trump supporters you think are evil. I don't care. You know, you get people like, yeah, but have you seen what Trump supporters have said? Trump supporters ain't me. I say what I say, and I say evil. Okay? Here's the story. Attorney General Merrick Garland attempted Wednesday to shut down criticism of the Biden DOJ with an op-ed in the Washington Post. But his flat dismissal of concerns of the DOJ's politicization of conspiracy theories fails to engage the facts. Garland's response in the Post came the week after he testified during a House Judiciary Committee hearing that he would not be intimidated by attacks on the department, and ahead of a House vote holding him in contempt of Congress for declining to turn over the recording of President Joe Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur. Below are annotated excerpts from the op-ed. Here's a quote. In recent weeks, we have seen an escalation of attacks that go far beyond public scrutiny, criticism, and legitimate and necessary oversight of our work. They are baseless, personal, and dangerous. These attacks come in the form of threats to defund particular department investigations, most recently the special counsel's prosecution of the former president. Garland ignores the differences in the prosecution of Trump and Biden for similar behavior with classified documents. For instance, Trump's case involved an armed raid on Mar-a-Lago, while in Biden's case, his personal lawyers searched his papers. The DOJ spent over $23 million on 2 investigations into former President Trump. I don't know why they say former president. You shouldn't. Everyone gets the honorific. It's President Trump. While spending only around $6.4 million on the probe into Biden's handling of classified documents, according to numbers released in January. The Biden DOJ also opposed efforts to limit its settlement slush fund, which enables it to direct funds toward left-wing nonprofits. They come in the form of conspiracy theories, crafted and spread for the purpose of undermining public trust in the judicial process itself. Oh, heavens me. Those include false claims that a case brought by a local district attorney and resolved by a jury verdict in a state trial was somehow controlled by the Justice Department. Garland forgets to mention that this so-called local case was led by a former top Biden admin official. You know what, man? And you know all this. We know all this. I don't know what you do. I don't know. There are people who don't want to accept it. We are years into the bifurcation in the American psyche. And I know for a fact, because y'all tell me, and I've experienced it too. You bring this evidence to a friend or family member who's liberal and say, Matthew Colangelo, formerly the third ranking official in the Biden DOJ, joined the Manhattan's DA office as senior counsel in December 2022 while Bragg's investigation into Trump was ongoing. Bragg campaigned on prosecuting Trump. And they'll say, no, they don't care. Well, so there you go. I don't know how this country survives with people who will stand by watching illegal activities happen and say, I don't care. It's a conflict of interest at the very least. How about we say this? Conflict of interest, wash our hands of it, start over. How about that? New investigation, will start over. They won't even accept that. No, it was a guilty verdict by a jury. See, even they went after Hunter Biden. I don't care about Hunter Biden. Literally don't. I say free Hunter Biden. That gun charge is bunk. Okay. The tax charges, okay, we'll see. But I don't think you should be, I think you should be pardoned. And I think actually every 2A rights organization should file an amicus brief on behalf of Hunter Biden in his defense, take it to the Supreme Court and get Form 4473 abolished. Charging a guy because, you know, you want to charge him for the crime of being a crackhead, charge him for the crime of being a crackhead, and then through due process, take away his right to own a weapon. But not this federal background check stuff. Well, the DOJ said this week, that a search revealed no communication between department leadership and Bragg's office. Many have questioned why a top official would step down from one of the most high-ranking positions in the legal world to take a role in the office of a local prosecutor. And we have this. Let me see. We have DOJ says no contact between senior officials in Manhattan DA Bragg's office about the Trump case. Your third-ranking guy works there. It's absolutely incredible. If there was like a group of thieves and one of the guys who was part of this crew quits the crew and gets a job as a manager at a bank, and then a year later the bank gets robbed by them thieves, they're gonna go ahead and say, I think this guy's in on it. You get my point? Anyone with a brain can see this. There is a very serious conflict of interest. A guy working in the DOJ steps down, it's very unusual, and goes and joins Bragg in targeting Trump. There was no communication. What do you mean? The communication's directly in your office. You hired the guy. That's direct collusion and communication. And they'll make the argument, yes, but technically, there's nothing illegal about hiring a Biden administration official to work in a local prosecutor's office to go after Donald Trump. Yeah, okay. Colangelo previously led the investigation into the Trump Foundation and the investigation that became Trump's civil fraud case while working for the New York District Attorney's Office in 2018. He received $12,000 from the Democratic National Committee for Political Consulting, according to FEC records. They come in, here's another quote, they come in the form of false claims that the department is politicizing its work to somehow influence the outcome of an election. Such claims are often made by those who are themselves attempting to politicize the department's work to influence the outcome of an election. Garland does not mention the extreme steps his DOJ has gone through to bring the charges in the height of the election season. Special counsel Jack Smith pushed hard to get Trump's January 6 case to trial before the election, even asking the Supreme Court to take up the presidential immunity appeal before allowing the lower court to weigh in. Former DOJ official Jack Goldsmith called Smith's rush to trial wildly unfair and suggested it violated both the normal rules of fairness to defendants and a DOJ rule barring prosecutors from selecting the timing of their actions for the purpose of affecting any election. Moreover, the DOJ has declined to turn over audio of Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur to Congress. According to the transcript of that interview, Biden appeared to misremember key facts about his life. And that's the thing. We have the transcript, but they don't want us to hear the audio. Because the audio, well, it's going to make Biden sound very, very bad. But Matt Gaetz made a great point. Like, There's nothing we're going to hear on that we don't already know. The man nearly, or at least appeared to have crapped himself in public. This is what I love. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know that Joe Biden suffered a bout of fecal incontinence. I don't. And I'm not suggesting we have proof that he did. What I'm suggesting is there is more evidence that Joe Biden defecated himself than there is evidence that Hunter Biden's laptop is part of a Russian disinformation campaign, or that Donald Trump was secretly working for the Russians. How about that? There's more evidence. There is more evidence that Joe Biden is involved with illicit business dealings, untoward business dealings, and influence peddling with his children and their business associates, or his child, than there is that he defecated himself. I'd be willing to take that one up if you want, but y'all don't seem to care about that one. So when we get a video that appears to show a man who is 81, which according to standard probability, 15 to 30% of individuals over 80 suffer fecal incontinence. It's why adult diapers exist. It's why they're for sale. The probability that Joe Biden suffers from this is actually decently high. It's either 1 in 6 or 1 in 3. And then you see the man who's over 80 squat down and grimace and then lean up a little bit and then squat down and grimace and then stands there. Why did he do it? We don't know. I'm not saying it's maybe he was just, stretching the old back. Oh, I'm an old man. I'm going to stretch the old back. Sure, maybe. Okay. But I tell you what, evidence is not proof. Evidence is information that could lead us towards a conclusion. And when you look at an 81-year-old man in this position, I say, it's possible. There's more evidence that he crapped himself than there is that the Hunter Biden laptop is part of some Russian disinformation scheme. But they're still maintaining that. This is the state of modern American politics that will not survive. We cannot function this way. It won't work. I mean, to have a DOJ that exists solely for retribution against Republicans. This is Merrick Garland's story. He was supposed to be on the Supreme Court. Ooh, he really wanted it. It was a dream of a lifetime. And Republicans blocked him. And it was shady business dealings. Absolutely. There was no reason to block his appointment. That made no sense. They held out, and then I think it was Gorsuch, right? Gorsuch. It was supposed to be Merrick Garland. But I think we're lucky because the demeanor of this man is that of a petulant child. And heaven help us if this man was on the Supreme Court. Now, don't get me wrong. The Supreme Court's got petulant children on it as it is. Roberts ain't getting no credit from me. That dude is as flaccid a man could be. Like, I can look at the liberal justices and be like, yeah, I see their perspective. I think they're wrong. And that's okay. Ketanji Brown Jackson doesn't know what a woman is. That's shocking. But Merrick Garland has the demeanor of a child, a petulant child who wants revenge. Now you say, ha, got you, Tim, because so does Donald Trump. Yeah. Here's the thing. Merrick Garland weaponizing the DOJ against Trump and his supporters, we're not seeing the inverse. So if Donald Trump wants to go in and bring accountability, it's kind of like this. Donald Trump is a petulant child with holding a bunch of rocks, and he did not throw them. Merrick Garland is angry because he got kicked off the team, so he started throwing rocks. Now I'm saying, okay, we got to stop the guy. If Donald Trump wants to engage in petulant, childish fighting, it's only after the fact. But I can put it this way. What we need is accountability. What Merrick Garland is doing is not accountability. It's politicking. It's corruption. It's abject criminal corruption. Donald Trump may be a petulant child in many rights, but at the very least, when he gets in, what we're hoping for is you put a stop to this. Schoolyard bullies. You may not like Donald Trump. He may be loud, boorish, and brash, but he ain't the one who started throwing rocks. They accuse him of being a Russian spy. They tried to lock him up. They're trying to lock him up now. And what has he done? When they were firebombing buildings, the far left, Trump did not deploy U.S. Army, National Guard, invoke the Insurrection Act. He didn't do any of that. We wanted him to. He didn't do it. Trump said, I ain't throwing rocks at nobody. And now here we are. So I tell you this. When Donald Trump gets in office, I hope he just shuts it all down. Merrick Garland should be in jail. So should many other Democrats. Hillary Clinton and her staff who destroyed public records, smashing devices with hammers. That is clearly and obviously criminal. Yet here we are. The world that we live in is one in which Democrats break the law and Republicans do nothing. Holding Merrick Garland in contempt. Sure, if they'd actually do something, but they're not going to. Because, man, this country is bifurcated and the power structures are plainly obvious. When Steve Bannon is held in contempt of Congress, they say straight to jail. When Merrick Garland is, they say we're not going after Merrick Garland because they're evil. Because they're evil. They wield power to crush their enemies, and Republicans send strongly worded letters. That's what this is, another strongly worded letter. Oh, at the very least, I can say this. It raises a question for regular people that could be politically weaponized. Hey, did you hear that Merrick Garland was held in contempt of Congress, just like Steve Bannon? And they'll say, really? Well, yeah, it's because he had information on Joe Biden's mental state or something they didn't turn over. Well, why didn't he turn it over? He cited executive privilege. Well, don't they have that right? Donald Trump cited executive privilege for Steve Bannon, but they said he didn't have that right. Why not? Well, the argument was that Trump's out of office. Does that make sense? That former presidents' administrations must turn over communications as soon as they leave office? If you want to play that game, I got a lot of records from the Obama administration I'd like to go through. I'd look forward to seeing how that plays out. But the question is really simple. You don't even get that in depth with the average person. You just say, yeah, Merrick Garland didn't want to turn over records, so they held him in contempt, and they're saying they're not going to lock him up. Meanwhile, Steve Bannon didn't want to turn over records, and so they held him in contempt, and now they are locking him up. He has to go to prison. Why? Why is Steve Bannon going to prison and Merrick Garland's not going to prison? I don't think the average person is going to get past that level of thinking. They're going to say, yeah, that's weird. And so perhaps that's the GOP strategy. This contempt of Merrick Garland is going to prove the double standard or add more to it, and which they can then claim we have corrupt government with Joe Biden. It's going to freak people out. At the end of the day, however, it may freak some people out, but I tell you this. The average person ain't watching this video. This is the nittiest of gritty in politics. Merrick Garland, who cares? The average person wants to know why a carton of eggs costs $7. Dude, I was watching Fox and Friends, and they were at a supermarket, or it was like a market/restaurant, and they're like, oh, eggs, how much those cost? He's like $7, and they're like, what? $7? That's what people care about. All right, I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.